Captain Wu stood on the bridge of the Determination, watching the stars streak past the viewport. His ship was humanity's finest creation, built over 10 years with the combined efforts of every nation on Earth. Today, it carried Earth's hopes toward the Galactic Council's station, a massive structure that orbited a dead star. The message had arrived 3 months ago, radio signals clear and precise in every human language. Greetings, inhabitants of Sol 3. The Galactic Council welcomes you to the community of civilized species. Prepare representatives for formal contact. At first, the world celebrated. Humanity was not alone, but as diplomats studied the message more carefully, they noticed something troubling. The tone was not friendly. It sounded more like a summons than an invitation. Checked his uniform one final time. Beside him stood Dr. Wu, a young woman who had studied biology and cultures all her life. She looked nervous, clutching her data pad tightly. "Captain, what do you think they'll be like?" she asked. "I don't know," replied honestly, "but we'll find out soon." The Determination approached the council station and felt his breath catch. The structure was enormous, easily 100 kilometers across. Ships of strange designs dotted the exterior, some shaped like crescents, others like geometric crystals. The station itself glowed with blue light, pulsing like a heartbeat. A voice crackled through the communications system. "Primitive vessel, you are cleared to dock at port 774. Follow the beacon. Do not deviate." The voice sounded bored, almost annoyed. Exchanged a glance with his pilot. "They called us primitive," the pilot muttered. "Follow their instructions," ordered calmly, though anger flickered in his chest. The docking process was smooth, and soon Wu and 4 other humans stepped onto the station. The air smelled strange, like metal and something sweet. The corridor stretched before them, tall and wide. Too tall, realized. The ceiling was at least 10 meters high. A creature waited for them. It stood on 2 legs but looked like a lizard with scales that shimmered green and gold. Its eyes were cold and yellow. "I am Ambassador," it said, its voice hissing through sharp teeth. "You are the humans." "Yes," said, extending his hand for a handshake. "I am Captain Wu, representing Earth." Stared at the offered hand with disgust. "We do not touch lesser species. Follow me." The ambassador turned and walked away without waiting. Wu's face flushed red with embarrassment but simply nodded to his team. They followed through winding corridors. Other aliens passed them and saw dozens of different species. Some floated in the air, surrounded by bubbles of liquid. Others had 6 legs and crystal-like skin. A few looked almost human but with skin colors had never imagined: deep purple, bright orange, pure white. Every single one of them stopped to stare at the humans, and every single one looked at them with the same expression: contempt. Finally, they reached a massive chamber. The council chamber, realized. It was a circular room with seats arranged in rising tiers. Hundreds of aliens filled those seats, representing species from across the galaxy. At the center, on the highest platform, sat an enormous insect-like creature. Its body was covered in black armor, and its multiple eyes glowed red. "I am High Counselor," the creature's voice boomed, though couldn't see its mouth move. Some kind of telepathy or translation device. "You stand before the Galactic Council, humans. We have reviewed your species and your planet." "We are honored to meet you," said, keeping his voice respectful but firm. Made a sound like clicking laughter. Other council members joined in. "Honored? How amusing." The High Counselor leaned forward. "Let me explain your situation, humans. The galaxy has been civilized for 2 million years. 847 species are part of our council. We have technologies you cannot imagine. We have eliminated war, disease, and poverty." "That's wonderful," Wu said softly. "We hope to learn from you." "Learn?" hissed from beside them. "You misunderstand. We did not invite you here as equals. We invited you here to inform you of your new status." The reptilian alien's smile was cruel. "You are classified as a Class 7 primitive species. You have basic space travel, yes, but your technology is laughable. You are painfully short, barely 100 years. You are weak, fragile creatures who still fight wars among yourselves. Felt his team tense beside him, but he raised a hand slightly, warning them to stay calm. Continued, "We are offering you membership in the council, but not as equals. You will serve as laborers. Your people will work in our factories, our mines, our farms. In return, we will allow Earth to continue existing. This is generous, considering your primitive state." "Serve," repeated slowly. "You want humanity to become your servants." "Precisely," said. "You should be grateful. Many Class 7 species are simply eliminated as too troublesome. We are giving you a chance." Dr. Wu stepped forward, her voice shaking with barely controlled anger. "We are not servants. We are a free people." The council chamber erupted in laughter. Aliens of every shape and size laughed at the humans' defiance. One floating creature spoke between giggles, "Free. You think you have a choice." Raised one clawed appendage and the laughter stopped. "You have 30 days to accept our terms. If you refuse, we will send a fleet to your planet. It will take us approximately 3 weeks to reach your solar system. We will disable your defenses and take control of Earth by force. Many humans will die in the process, but enough will survive to serve us. The choice is yours, peaceful servitude or violent conquest." Looked up at the hundreds of aliens staring down at him. He saw no kindness in any of their faces. They truly believed humans were nothing more than primitive animals, barely worth their attention. A cold anger settled in his stomach, but he kept his face neutral. "We will take your message to our leaders," said calmly. "But I want you to know something, High Counselor. Humans have a saying, never mistake kindness for weakness." Laughed. "Is that a threat, little human? With your toy ships and chemical rockets, you have nothing we fear." Met the reptilian's yellow eyes steadily. "Perhaps we'll see." He turned to his team. "We're leaving." As the humans walked out of the council chamber, aliens continued to mock them. Heard their comments, "Look how they waddle on those short legs. Such limited sensory organs. Did you see their soft skin? One scratch would kill them." Back on the determination, finally allowed himself to show emotion. He slammed his fist on the console. "They think we're insects," he said quietly. Wu looked at him. "What do we do, Captain?" Stared out at the stars. "We go home, we tell Earth what happened, and then," he paused, his jaw tight, "then we show them what humans are really capable of." The determination turned away from the council station and began its journey back to Earth. Behind them, the aliens celebrated, already planning how they would divide Earth's resources. They had no idea that they had just made the worst mistake in galactic history. They had underestimated humanity. The emergency meeting began 2 hours after the determination returned to Earth. Leaders from every nation gathered in the United Earth Assembly Hall in Geneva. On the massive screen at the front, Captain's face looked tired but determined as he finished his report. "They gave us 30 days, he said. "After that, they'll come with a fleet. They expect us to surrender without a fight." The Brazilian president stood up, her voice shaking with rage. "This is unacceptable. We are not slaves. We must fight." "Fight with what?" the Chinese premier asked quietly. "You heard the captain's report. They have 847 species, technologies that are millions of years old. We've barely made it to Mars." Admiral, Earth's chief of defense, rose from her seat. She was a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and hair pulled back tightly. "With respect, Premier, I disagree. I think we can win." The room fell silent. Everyone turned to look at her. "Explain," the Indian Prime Minister said. Touched her tablet, and new information appeared on the screen. "After Captain's report, I had my team analyze everything we learned about the Galactic Council. Commander, please share your findings." A younger woman in military uniform appeared on screen. "Thank you, Admiral. My intelligence team spent the last 48 hours reviewing all communications, images, and data from the Council station. We've discovered several critical facts." Commander's presentation showed images of alien ships and structures. First, the Council's military hasn't fought a real war in over 12,000 years. They mentioned this themselves proudly. They believe war is primitive and beneath them. That's good for them, the Russian general said. What does it mean for us? It means they've forgotten how to fight, replied. All their defenses are automated. Drones, AI systems, predetermined response patterns. There are no soldiers, no warriors. They haven't needed them. Murmurs spread through the assembly hall. Continued, there's more. Dr. Dongpark, our quantum physicist, found something interesting about their technology. A man with messy hair and thick glasses appeared on screen next. He looked excited despite the serious situation. Yes, hello. So, I analyzed the energy signatures from the Council station. Their shields, their power systems, their weapons, they all use the same basic technology. And here's the amazing part. That technology hasn't changed in thousands of years. Why is that amazing? The French president asked. Shouldn't we be worried that their technology is so good it doesn't need improvement? Dong shook his head vigorously. No, you misunderstand. Technology should always evolve, always improve. The fact that theirs hasn't means it's become stagnant, comfortable, and I found a weakness. He pulled up complex diagrams. Their shields rotate through different frequencies to block various types of attacks, but the rotation pattern is predictable. It's like a lock with the combination written on it. If we time our weapons correctly, we can punch right through. The room buzzed with conversation. Hope began to replace despair on many faces. Spoke again. There's one more crucial discovery. Lee, our cybersecurity expert, analyzed their communication systems. A young woman with purple-streaked hair appeared on screen. She looked tired but triumphant. Their encryption is a joke, she said bluntly. I mean, it's complex, sure, but it's ancient. They're using codes that haven't been updated in centuries. I've already created a virus that can infiltrate their networks. Given 30 seconds of access to any Council ship system, I can take control of it. The assembly hall erupted in excited chatter. The Japanese Prime Minister raised his hand for silence. This is all encouraging, but we still face a massive numerical disadvantage. They said they're sending a fleet. How many ships? Captain answered this time. Intelligence intercepts suggest 200 ships. They consider this excessive force for dealing with us. 200 ships, the German Chancellor repeated slowly, and we have 47 combat-capable vessels, said honestly. But that number is misleading. Let me explain what we actually have. She walked to the front of the room, her presence commanding attention. The Council species evolved in low-gravity environments with minimal threats. They're physically weak. They've never known hardship, never faced real danger. Meanwhile, humans have been fighting each other for our entire history. War is in our blood, our culture, our very evolution. She pulled up more data. Our ships can accelerate at 9 G-forces. That means 9 times Earth's gravity pressing on the pilot. The Council species would be crushed at 3 Gs. Their automated systems are fast, but they follow patterns. Human pilots can make split-second decisions that no AI can predict. We also have something they've never encountered, Commander added. Chaos. The Council fights with perfect formations, predetermined strategies, and logical responses. We can be unpredictable, random, insane by their standards. Dr. Wu, who had been quiet until now, spoke up from her seat in the assembly. I studied their psychology during our visit. They're arrogant, yes, but it's more than that. They genuinely cannot imagine losing to us. It's not in their worldview. They've been the dominant force for so long that they've forgotten that power can be challenged. Nodded, exactly. They'll underestimate us at every turn, and we'll use that. The South Korean president stood. Admiral, what do you need from us? Everything, said simply. Every ship, every weapon, every resource. We have 28 days left. I need authorization to mobilize Earth's full military capability. The vote was unanimous. Every nation agreed. The next 4 weeks transformed Earth into a fortress. Engineer 1, a brilliant designer from Seoul, led teams that repurposed civilian technology into weapons. Mining explosives used for asteroids became ship-killing missiles. Industrial lasers for cutting metal became point defense systems. Even cargo ships were retrofitted with weapons and armor. Lieutenant Jin, one of Earth's best pilots, trained squadrons day and night. She pushed them to fly in ways the Council would consider impossible: tight spirals, sudden reversals, erratic patterns that would break any predictable AI targeting system. Colonel Sung gathered Earth's special forces for a mission that seemed insane. Boarding actions, he explained to his Marines. The Council has never experienced hand-to-hand combat. Their ships have no internal defenses against intruders. If we can get aboard their vessels, we can take them from the inside. His Marines trained in zero gravity, learning to fight in tight corridors with knives, guns, and their bare hands. Meanwhile, Lee worked around the clock on her virus. She tested it on every system she could access, refining it until it was perfect. "Once I'm in," she told, "I can turn their whole fleet against itself." On the 28th day, the Council fleet appeared at the edge of the solar system, near Neptune's orbit. They broadcast a message across all frequencies. Ambassador's hissing voice filled the airwaves. "Humans of Earth, your time is up. Surrender now and most of you will be allowed to live as servants. Resist and we will show no mercy. You cannot win. You are primitives facing the might of galactic civilization. This is your final warning." In the command center deep beneath the Swiss Alps, Admiral watched the enemy fleet on her screens. 200 ships, just as predicted. They moved in perfect formation, confident and unstoppable. She looked around at her team. Captain, Commander Dr. Dong, Lee, Lieutenant Jin, Colonel Sung, and dozens of others. They all looked back at her with determination. "They think this will be easy," said quietly. "Let's teach them why you should never underestimate humanity. All units prepare for battle. Show them what we're made of." Across Earth's orbital space, 47 ships powered up their engines and began moving toward the enemy. The Council fleet detected them and, predictably, laughed at the pitiful response. They had no idea what was coming. The Council fleet moved slowly through the solar system, taking their time. They had no reason to hurry. On the bridge of the flagship Eternal Dominance, Fleet Commander watched the primitive human ships gathering near Earth's moon. The commander was a tall, thin creature with skin and 3 arms. Like most Council species, had never seen real combat, only simulations. "How amusing," said to his crew. "They're actually going to fight us with those tiny ships." The crew laughed. There were only 15 beings on the bridge, all monitoring automated systems. The ship's AI controlled everything: weapons, shields, navigation. The crew was there simply to observe and report back to the Council. "Should we hail them and offer one final chance to surrender?" the communications officer asked. "Why not?" said lazily. "It will be entertaining to hear them beg." The message was sent, but the humans didn't respond. Instead, their 47 ships began moving into a defensive formation around Earth. Studied the formation with his large, black eyes. It looked standard, predictable. The humans were placing their ships in layers, probably hopping to create a defensive wall. "Pathetic strategy," muttered. "Begin the attack, full automated assault. Let's end this quickly." What didn't know was that every move his fleet made was being watched, analyzed, and recorded. On Earth, in the underground command center, Admiral stood before a massive holographic display. The Council fleet appeared as red dots, while Earth's ships showed as blue. "They're falling for it," Commander said with satisfaction. "They think our formation is defensive." Smiled coldly. "Good. Are you in their system yet?" Lee sat at a console surrounded by 6 screens, her fingers flying across keyboards. "Almost. Their flagship is broadcasting commands to the entire fleet. Once I crack their main system, I'll have access to everything. Sweat dripped down her face despite the cool air in the command center. Just a few more seconds. On the other side of the room, Dr. Dong monitored the Council fleet's shields. Their rotation pattern is exactly as predicted. I've sent the timing data to all our ships. When they fire, the weapons will hit during the shield's weak phase. Colonel Sung stood with his team of Marines, already suited up in their boarding gear. 20 teams of 10 Marines each, ready to launch. Their pods were disguised as debris, designed to drift close to Council ships before suddenly activating. "We'll target their command ships first," Sung explained to his people. "Remember, these aliens have never fought hand-to-hand. They'll panic. Use that fear." His Marines nodded grimly. They knew this mission was dangerous, maybe suicidal, but they were ready. Lieutenant Jin was already in her fighter craft, floating in space with her squadron. They had launched hours ago, hiding behind Earth's moon, their engines cold and undetectable. 50 of Earth's best pilots waited with her, ready to strike. "Squadron sound off," Jin said quietly into her radio. One by one, her pilots confirmed they were ready. Jin checked her instruments for the 100th time. Her fighter was small, fast, and packed with weapons. More importantly, it could pull maneuvers that would kill most organic beings. Jin had trained for this. She could handle 12 Gs for short periods, something the Council considered impossible. Back in the command center, received reports from all units. Everything was in position. The Council fleet was now close enough to begin their attack. She took a deep breath. This was it. Everything humanity had worked for, everything they'd built, came down to the next few hours. "All units, this is Admiral," she said into the main communication channel. "Remember what we're fighting for. Not just Earth, but our freedom, our dignity, our future. The Council thinks we're weak, primitive, not worth their respect. Today we show them the truth about humanity. We don't just survive, we thrive. We adapt. We win. Execute protocol endurance on my mark." She watched the red dots on her display move closer to the blue ones. The Council fleet's AI was calculating firing solutions, preparing to unleash devastating weapons on Earth ships. 3, 2, 1, mark. Everything happened at once. The Council fleet opened fire, and beams of energy lanced out toward Earth's defensive formation. But the human ships didn't sit still waiting to be hit. They scattered instantly, each ship moving in a different direction with no pattern, no predictability. The Council's AI tried to track them but couldn't get clean locks. The targeting system was designed for enemies that followed logical movement patterns. "What are they doing?" shouted on the flagship bridge. "Their movements make no sense." The first wave of Council fire missed almost entirely. Only 3 human ships took glancing hits and their shields held. Then Earth returned fire. Missiles streaked across space and laser beams flashed. But these weren't aimed at the main shields. Dr. Dong's calculations were perfect. Each shot hit during the brief moment when the shields rotated, striking weak points. Explosions blossomed across 5 Council ships. Their shields flickered and failed. Alarms blared on those vessels as crews panicked, not understanding how primitive weapons had penetrated their defenses. "Impossible," screamed. "Reinforce shields, all ships maintain formation." But maintaining formation was a mistake. Lieutenant Jin saw her opportunity. "Squadron, light them up. Go, go, go." 50 human fighters suddenly appeared from behind the moon, their engines burning bright. They accelerated at speeds that made the Council's tracking system stutter. Jin's fighter reached 9 Gs of acceleration, and she gritted her teeth against the pressure. Her vision narrowed, but her hands stayed steady on the controls. The fighters tore through the Council formation like bullets through paper. They were too small, too fast, too erratic. The Council's automated defenses couldn't track them. Jin fired her weapons point-blank into a Council cruiser's engine section. The ship exploded in a ball of fire. Her squadron followed her lead, targeting engines, weapon systems, and command bridges. Within 2 minutes, 15 Council ships were disabled or destroyed. On the flagship, chaos reigned. Shouted orders, but nothing worked. The automated systems kept failing, unable to cope with the unpredictable human tactics. "Request reinforcements from the rest of the fleet," he ordered. "Sir, we're receiving no response from the other ships." Why not?" Because at that moment, Lee smiled in the command center. "I'm in," she said simply. Her virus had spread through the Council fleet's network like wildfire. Suddenly, Council ships couldn't communicate with each other. Their weapons systems stopped responding. Some ships began targeting their own allies as the AI went haywire. Beautiful breathed, "Launch the boarding teams." Colonel Sung and his Marines shot out from hidden positions in small pods. The pods looked like space debris tumbling through the battlefield. The Council ships ignored them, focused on the fighters and larger vessels. By the time they realized the pods were threats, it was too late. Sung's pod clamped onto the hull of a Council destroyer. His Marines used cutting torches to burn through the outer wall. Within seconds, they were inside. The corridor was empty. The Council crew hadn't even considered that someone might board their ship. "Move fast," Sung ordered. "Find the bridge." His Marines ran through the ship's corridors. When they encountered crew members, the aliens froze in terror. These were scientists and technicians, not soldiers. They had never seen weapons used in person, never experienced violence. Sung almost felt sorry for them as his team secured the ship section by section. On the flagship finally understood the terrible truth. These weren't primitives. These were warriors. Real warriors, hardened by thousands of years of warfare, clever and brutal and unstoppable. His perfect fleet was falling apart. "Retreat," ordered desperately. "All ships retreat to." His command was cut off as the ship shuddered. Sung and his team had reached the flagship's bridge. The door exploded inward and human Marines poured in, stared at them in horror. They were covered in armor, carrying weapons, their faces hidden behind helmets. They looked like monsters. "On your knees," Sung ordered, his rifle pointed at. The Council commander collapsed, trembling. Around him, his crew did the same. They had surrendered without firing a single shot in self-defense. In space, the battle continued, but the outcome was already decided. The Council fleet was broken, scattered, leaderless. Earth's forces pressed their advantage ruthlessly. By the time the sun rose over Earth's surface, 187 Council ships had been destroyed or captured. Only 13 managed to escape, fleeing back toward Council space. Admiral watched the last enemy ships disappear on her monitors. Around her, the command center erupted in cheers. Humans hugged each other, cried with relief, shouted in triumph. They had won. Allowed herself a small smile. Then she opened a communication channel to the captured flagship. "This is Admiral of Earth. Inform your council that we reject their offer of servitude, and tell them if they ever threaten us again, we'll bring the fight to them." News of Earth's victory spread across the galaxy faster than anyone expected. The Council had made their attack public, broadcasting their intentions to punish the primitive humans. They wanted to make an example of Earth, to show other species what happened when you refused Council authority. Instead, they had created a very different example. On the Council home world of Nexus Prime, High Counselor received the reports with disbelief. His multiple eyes stared at the data streams, trying to make sense of what had happened. 187 ships lost. 13 escaped. The fleet commander captured by primitive warriors who had somehow boarded his flagship. "This is impossible," said, his telepathic voice shaking. "They're Class 7 primitives. They have chemical rockets and basic computers. How did they defeat our fleet?" Ambassador stood beside him, looking smaller than usual. The reptilian diplomat had been so confident when he'd insulted the humans. Now he seemed afraid. "The reports say they used unpredictable tactics. Their pilots flew in ways our AI couldn't track. They hacked our communication systems. They even boarded our ships and fought our crews in physical combat." "Physical combat," repeated slowly. "You mean violence, direct violence?" "Yes, High Counselor." Felt something he hadn't experienced in his 300 years of life. Fear, real, deep fear. Mobilize the full galactic fleet, every ship, every world. We must crush Earth before this gets worse. But when the mobilization order went out, something unexpected happened. Species across the galaxy refused. The Council had ruled through intimidation and assumed superiority for so long that they'd forgotten. Loyalty based on fear disappears when the fearsome become afraid. The collective sent a formal message declining to participate. The Empire did the same. The Crystalline Communion, the Void Dwellers, the Silver Chorus. One by one, species that had served the Council for thousands of years found reasons not to send their ships. Within 48 hours of the battle, 23 species reached out to Earth directly, seeking alliances. 8 more asked for Earth's protection, wanting human forces to defend them against potential Council retaliation. Captain read these messages in his quarters aboard the Determination, which had been damaged but survived the battle. He felt strange reading requests for help from species that had technologies far beyond Earth's. They were asking humans to protect them. It seemed impossible. A knock on his door interrupted his thoughts. Dr. Wu entered carrying a data pad. She looked exhausted but excited. "Captain, you need to see this. A Council representative just entered our solar system. She's alone in an unarmed ship requesting permission to land on Earth." Alone frowned. "It could be a trick." "I don't think so," Wu said. "She's broadcasting credentials. Her name is Counselor Thera, and she's listed as the head of the diplomatic corps. She's asking for immediate peace negotiations." Contacted Admiral, and within hours, Counselor Thera was escorted to Earth's surface. They chose to meet in Seoul, in a conference room that overlooked the city. Was there, along with Wu and representatives from Earth's major governments. Counselor Thera was a graceful being who looked almost like a tall human woman, but her skin was pale blue and her eyes were completely silver. She moved into the room slowly, and noticed she kept her hands visible and made no sudden movements. She was trying not to appear threatening. "Thank you for seeing me," Thera said, her voice soft and melodic. "I come on behalf of a faction within the Council that wishes to make peace with Earth." "Peace," repeated, her tone flat. "2 weeks ago your Council demanded we become your slaves. Now you want peace." Thera bowed her head. "I understand your anger. What the Council did was wrong. What we said to you was wrong. We judged you based on our prejudices, not on your actual capabilities or worth." She looked up, meeting eyes. "We were arrogant, and arrogance has a price." "Yes, it does," agreed. "You lost 187 ships. Thousands of your people are dead or captured, and now other species are abandoning you." "It's worse than that," Thera said quietly. "High Counselor tried to mobilize a full galactic response against Earth. Only 12 species agreed to send forces. The Council is fracturing. Species that feared us now see we're not invincible. Some are talking about leaving the Council entirely. Others want to reshape it." She paused. "Your victory didn't just defeat a fleet. It shattered a social order that existed for." Dr. Wu leaned forward. "What do you want from us, Counselor?" "I want to offer Earth full membership in the Galactic Council, not as servants or laborers but as equals. Full voting rights, full access to technologies, full respect." Thera pulled out a data device and placed it on the table. "This contains our formal apology and our proposed treaty terms." Picked up the device and scanned through the information. His eyebrows rose. "You're offering reparations, technology transfers, and you want to grant Earth a permanent seat on the Council's leadership board." "Yes," Thera said. "We're also proposing a complete review of how the Council classifies species. The class system was always flawed, based on assumptions rather than real understanding. Your people proved that advancement isn't just about technology. It's about adaptability, creativity, and strength of spirit. The Earth representatives looked at each other. This was more than they'd hoped for, but wasn't finished. What about the species you've already classified as primitives, the ones you've enslaved or exploited? Thera nodded, clearly expecting this question. We will free them, all of them. The Council will no longer force any species into servitude. This is non-negotiable in our proposal. And what about consequences? Asked. Your people attacked us without provocation. They killed humans. Will anyone be held accountable? High Counselor has been removed from power, Thera said. Ambassador has been stripped of his position. The officers who led the attack fleet will face tribunals. We can't bring back the dead, but we can ensure justice is served. The negotiations continued for 3 days. Earth's representatives drove hard bargains, knowing they had leverage. The final treaty was extensive. The Council would grant Earth full membership. All captured Council ships and technology would remain with Earth. The Council would pay substantial reparations. Most importantly, the Council would dismantle its entire classification system and approach all species as potential equals. 5 years later, the galaxy looked very different. Earth had become one of the most influential members of the reformed Galactic Council. The new council was less hierarchical, more democratic, and actually responsive to its members' needs. Young Han, Earth's ambassador to the council, stood before the Galactic Assembly. The chamber was full, with representatives from over 900 species now. Many were species that had been enslaved under the old system and were now free. I stand before you as a human, Young said, his voice carried by translation devices to every being in the chamber. 5 years ago, your leaders looked at my people and saw primitives. They saw weakness. They made the mistake of judging us by their own standards, not by understanding who we truly are. He paused, looking around the chamber. But we made mistakes too. We judged you. We assumed all council species were like those who threatened us. We learned that many of you disagreed with the old ways. Many of you wanted change but were afraid to speak up. Young smiled. My people have a saying, diversity is strength. We learned this on Earth, where hundreds of cultures came together to face a common threat. The galaxy is learning it now. We're stronger together, not because we're all the same, but because we're all different. The chamber erupted in agreement. Species of every type voiced their support. Admiral watched the speech from Earth, where she now commanded the Galactic Defense Initiative, a joint military force that included ships and personnel from dozens of species. Former council members trained with human marines, learning tactics and strategies they'd never imagined. In return, humans learned alien technologies and sciences that expanded their understanding of the universe. Captain had been promoted to Fleet Admiral and commanded a mixed-species armada that patrolled the galaxy's outer regions. His flagship crew included humans, and even 2 former council members who had requested to serve under his command. Dr. Wu taught xenobiology at the new Galactic University, a joint institution where species shared knowledge freely. Her most popular class was titled, Why Assumptions Are Fatal, Understanding Species Through Empathy, Not Classification. On her first day of the new semester, she looked out at her students. Dozens of different species filled the classroom, all eager to learn. At the back sat Ambassador, the same reptilian who had insulted humans 5 years ago. He had been stripped of his position and title, but he had chosen to study rather than hide in shame. He took notes carefully, his yellow eyes focused on Wu's every word. Today, Wu began, we're going to talk about a concept that nearly destroyed galactic civilization, underestimating others. The old council believed that technology determined worth. They were wrong. Worth comes from within, from courage, adaptability, and the will to defend what matters. She smiled at her students. They learned this lesson the hard way. Let's make sure no one has to learn it again. The students listened carefully, taking notes, asking questions, and engaging in real discussion. The old galaxy had been one of hierarchy and assumed superiority. This new galaxy was one of mutual respect, earned through understanding rather than demanded through force. Earth had not just won a battle. They had changed an entire civilization, proving that sometimes the best victories come from showing others a better way to live. 10 years after the battle that changed the galaxy, Earth had become something no one could have predicted. The planet was now a hub of galactic culture, technology, and military power. Ships from hundreds of species arrived daily, bringing students, diplomats, traders, and soldiers who wanted to learn from humanity. Lieutenant Jin, now Commander Jin, stood in the pilot training center on Earth's orbital station. Around her, 50 students from 30 different species practiced flight maneuvers in simulators. A crystalline being, whose body looked like living glass, struggled with a tight barrel roll. A floating void dweller, surrounded by its bubble of liquid, couldn't quite master the rapid direction changes that human pilots made look easy. "Remember," Jin called out, walking between the simulators, "you're not trying to fly perfectly. You're trying to fly unpredictably. The enemy's AI can track perfect movements. It's the imperfect, the random, the seemingly crazy decisions that win battles." A tall, thin alien with skin raised 3 arms. Jin recognized the species, Council Elite class from the old hierarchy. This particular student was named, and he'd been struggling all week. "Commander, I don't understand," said, his voice frustrated. "My people flew in perfect formations for thousands of years. Why is random better?" Jin smiled patiently. "Because perfect is predictable, and predictable gets you killed." She brought up a simulation on the main screen. "Watch this recording from the battle 10 years ago." The screen showed the Council fleet moving in precise geometric patterns. Then it showed human fighters appearing, moving in what looked like complete chaos. The Council ships couldn't track them, couldn't predict them, couldn't hit them. "See," Jin pointed. "Your people expected logic. We gave them madness. Not because we're stupid, but because we understood something your people forgot. In war, chaos is a weapon." Stared at the screen, understanding dawning in his large black eyes. "We became too comfortable, too certain." "Exactly," Jin said. "Now get back in that simulator and show me some chaos." Across the station, in a military conference room, Admiral hosted a meeting of the Galactic Defense Initiative's senior command. The room was filled with officers from 24 species. Most wore uniforms adapted from human military designs. The old council had never needed uniforms, since they'd never had real soldiers. Reports from the Outer Rim began, pulling up a holographic map of the galaxy. "We've detected an unknown fleet approaching from deep space, not council-affiliated, possibly hostile." A officer, a being that looked like a cross between a bird and a lizard, leaned forward. "How many ships?" "Scout reports say at least 400, replied. "They destroyed an automated listening post without attempting communication." The room fell silent. 400 ships was a serious threat, even for the new Galactic Alliance. But unlike the old Council, this alliance was ready for conflict. "Fleet Admiral is already moving to intercept with Battle Group 17, continued. "That gives us 65 ships, mixed species crews. I'm recommending we send Battle Groups 9 and 14 as reinforcements." "That's 200 ships total," a commander said, his crystalline skin glowing softly. "Are we certain we need that many?" Looked at him steadily. 10 years ago, the Council sent 200 ships to conquer Earth and lost most of them. I've learned never to underestimate an enemy. We go in with overwhelming force, just in case." The officers nodded. This was the new way, cautious, prepared, respectful of potential threats. In the Outer Rim, Fleet Admiral stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Unyielding Spirit. His crew was a mixture of humans and aliens, all working together seamlessly. His tactical officer was unnamed, his weapons officer was human, and his chief engineer was a crystalline named. Unknown fleet entering sensor range, announced, his feathered crest rising in alertness. Studied the approaching vessels on his screen. They were large, blocky, and covered in weapons, definitely military, but whose military? Hail them, ordered, all frequencies. Let them know we're here to talk, but we're ready to fight if necessary. The communication went out, and for a long moment there was no response. Then a face appeared on the screen, a face that looked almost human, but with copper-colored skin and 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern. "I am War Leader of the Expanse," the being said, its voice deep and rough. "We have heard stories of this region, stories of a species called humans who defeated the mighty council with primitive ships, stories that we did not believe." Kept his expression neutral. "The stories are true, I was there, I commanded ships in that battle." His 4 eyes widened slightly. "Impressive. The Expanse is a warrior culture. We respect strength. We have come to see if these humans are worthy of alliance, or if they are simply lucky primitives who won a single battle." Smiled coldly. "Are you challenging us to combat?" "A test," said. "Small scale, 10 of your ships against 10 of ours. If you win, we talk alliance. If we win, we take this sector for ourselves." Looked at his crew. They looked back at him with confidence. "Accepted," he said. "Choose your 10 best ships. We'll meet you at these coordinates in 2 hours. Fair combat, agreed rules of engagement." "Agreed," said, and the screen went dark. Turn 2. "Admiral, shouldn't we wait for reinforcements?" "No," said calmly. "This is a warrior culture. They respect strength and courage, not caution. If we wait for backup, they'll see it as weakness. Besides," he smiled, "we have the best pilots in the galaxy." 2 hours later, 10 human ships faced 10 vessels in empty space. The ships were massive, easily twice the size of the human cruisers. Their weapons glowed with readiness. The battle began without warning. The ships opened fire with devastating barrages that would have destroyed old council vessels. But human ships danced between the blasts, moving with the erratic grace that Jin had taught a generation of pilots. They returned fire with precision, targeting weapon systems and engines. Within 15 minutes, 3 ships were disabled. The others fought fiercely, but they followed predictable patterns, military doctrine learned over centuries. The human ships fought like water, flowing around obstacles, striking from unexpected angles, never where the enemy expected them to be. When the last ship powered down its weapons in surrender, his face appeared on screen again. This time, the war leader was smiling. "Remarkable," said with obvious respect. "You fight like demons, like warriors born. The stories don't do you justice." "Does this mean you want to talk alliance?" asked. "More than talk," replied. "The Expanse wants to join your Galactic Defense Initiative. We want to learn from you, fight beside you. If there are other threats in this galaxy, we want to face them together." 3 months later, young hands stood before the Galactic Assembly once again. The chamber had grown even larger to accommodate new member species. The Expanse had joined, bringing their military might and warrior culture. They'd been followed by 5 other species from beyond Council space, all seeking to be part of this new galactic order. "We've learned many lessons in the past decade," Young said to the assembled species. "We learned that strength doesn't come from one species dominating others. We learned that diversity makes us resilient. We learned that underestimating anyone, whether they seem primitive or weak, is a fatal mistake." He paused, looking around the vast chamber. "But most importantly, we learned that peace isn't the absence of conflict. It's the presence of respect. The old council kept peace through fear and superiority. This new council keeps peace through mutual understanding and shared strength." The assembly voiced its agreement in a chorus of sounds, chirps, hums, clicks, and words in hundreds of languages. On Earth, in a small cafe in Seoul, Dr. Wu met with Ambassador. The former council member had completed his studies and now worked as a teacher himself, educating young council species about the mistakes of the past. "I never apologized to you personally," said quietly, his yellow eyes meeting hers. "When we first met, I was cruel, dismissive. I saw you as inferior." Wu stirred her coffee, "And now?" "Now I see you as what you truly are," said. "A teacher, a scientist, a person worthy of respect." He paused. "I was so certain of my people's superiority that I couldn't imagine being wrong. That certainty nearly destroyed us." "But it didn't," Wu said gently. "You learned, your people learned, that's what matters." Nodded slowly. "Humanity gave us something we didn't know we needed, humility. You could have destroyed the council after your victory. Instead, you offered us a chance to change. That mercy was the greatest lesson of all." That evening, as Earth's sun set over Seoul, Captain Now, retired from active military service, stood on a balcony overlooking the city. His daughter, young and eager, stood beside him. "Father," she asked, "is it true that you fought aliens when you were my age?" Smiled, putting his arm around her shoulders. "Not quite your age. I was older, but yes, I fought. We all fought." "Were you scared?" "Terrified," admitted. "The enemy had better technology, more ships, thousands of years of advancement. By every logical measure, we should have lost." "But you didn't," his daughter said proudly. "No, we didn't, because we had something they lacked. We'd spent our entire history facing challenges, adapting, surviving. They'd spent their history comfortable and unchallenged. When it came time to fight, we knew how. They didn't." His daughter thought about this. So being comfortable made them weak. "In a way," said, "comfort isn't bad. But when you're comfortable for too long, you forget how to struggle. And struggle is what makes you strong." He looked up at the stars, where ships from 100 worlds traveled between Earth and distant systems. "The galaxy is different now. Better. And it all started because some arrogant aliens underestimated humanity. They thought peaceful meant weak. They learned the hard way that the two are very different things." His daughter smiled. "I'm glad you won, Father." "So am I," said softly. "So am I." Above them, the stars shined bright, full of promise and possibility. The galaxy had learned its lesson, and humanity had claimed its place among the stars, not through conquest, but through proving that respect must be earned, never demanded, and that underestimating anyone based on assumptions rather than evidence is the most costly mistake any civilization can make.